Hey y'all, Boogie Night here, how's it going? And welcome back to Giallo July. Sadly, we are coming down to the home stretch of this mini arc, and I have had a blast with all of these movies. Not just because I'm a fan of the Giallo film, and I think modern horror movies can take a lesson from them, but because I was able to get Josh Wasabi to watch these movies with me and get his ideas and compare thoughts back and forth, which made kind of the analysis a little more interesting, as well as converting him to the Giallo fan club. Well, at least I think I've converted him to the Giallo fan club. That remains to be seen. Anyway, with that being said, let's go back in time and talk about a movie called Blood and Black Lace. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. Wait, hang on, Boogie Night. Are we already going back in time by talking about Giallo movies? Well, yes, but as I've said in my previous entries, while the Giallo film genre took off and blossomed in the 1970s with titular filmmakers like Dario Argento or Dino Tavella, Blood and Black Lace came out in 1964 by Italian filmmaker Mario Bava. And Mario Bava was actually famous for more of his slashers and his suspense movies as opposed to the Giallo film. But I also mentioned back in my rambling film entry, I think, about a movie called The Girl Who Knew Too Much. And that was also directed by Mario Bava. So while things really took off in the 1970s for the Giallo film genre, Mario Bava was kind of the layer of the foundation for the rest of it to take off, like Blood and Black Lace. And that being said, did I like this movie? Yes, I liked it immensely. Was it my favorite one to watch? Probably not. I encourage y'all to watch it, definitely, whether you do it on Amazon Prime or whatever streaming service you use. It might be on Netflix, but I highly doubt it. Whether you buy it, actually, you should go out and buy it. I mean, even if you just go into eBay and buy it for a few bucks, it's worth watching. It just wasn't my favorite for a couple of glaring reasons, and I'm actually going to go into those first off, rather than wait for the very end of it before I start talking about the plot. My one big glaring flaw with this movie, and whether that was Mario Bava's intent or not, was the characters. I wouldn't call them static per se, but they were all just selfish scumbags. I mean, it got to the point before the last act of the movie that I was cheering on the killer just to hurry up and kill them off because they had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Everybody was just selfish and out for themselves. I mean, it was like a CSI Miami episode, like, oh, you died? Do I get my money? I mean, even the detective was a reprehensible piece of shit. I mean, he wasn't even out there to try and solve the crime. He's like, well, I've been assigned this case. I guess I better take care of it. The main characters, I guess you can call them, were very just out for themselves. Like I said, you had the unrequited love interest who apparently was taking drugs at the same time because, why not? One person dies and everybody else like, ooh, let's see what we can get into. Let's see what kind of dirt we can find on this person and exploit it. I mean, there's a scene when after the first death that they uncover her diary and they publicly read it to each other. Dude, the body is still warm. I found that so reprehensible. And maybe it's just because I'm more sympathetic to people who have died, particularly in a horrific or tragic way. I can't relate to them, but I feel more prone to wanting to, wait for them to rest in the ground before I start digging up shit on them. I just found that so hideous. I mean, you had one woman with multiple lovers, none of which knew about the other person. So I was kind of like, okay, I really hope that she gets her comeuppance. Luckily, she gets killed, and the killer, like I said, was the only person that I think I can actually, I liked in that, because it was complete, just like, you die, you die, you die. But other than that, yeah, the characters they had no personality whatsoever. It was not static, like I said, but I think it could have been fleshed out a lot more. And maybe that's what Mario Bava was intending, to make you favor the killer a little bit more, or to favor the fact that they are getting killed in gruesome fashions like that. But with that in mind, let's go into some of the more positive things, like the killer. I know, that makes you sound like a complete sociopath, but this was probably one of the best things in this movie, was the killer itself. It was a human person. It had no supernatural elements to it. It was almost like an Agatha Christie 10 Little Indians kind of vibe to it, which, once again, I can totally see that being the case, as Josh and I discussed, but the killer was believable as hell. It was not the supernatural elements you would get from an Argento film, or even the more experimental kind of thing from Black Belly of the Tarantula, or even something gruesome and just over the top that Bruno Mattei might have done. It was just a person in a mask and a suit and a trench coat that almost kind of looked like a cross between the Slender Man and the Hollow Man, as Josh put it. Thank you, Josh, for reminding me about that piece of garbage movie. But no, I mean, it was just going up there to these people and just slashing them. It was your good old Italian slasher film. I mean, it was just grab them, slit the throat, whatever. I mean, there was no fur on the fangs, and to me, that makes it all the more believable about this mass killer going about. And you see news articles all the time about mass killers. Well, maybe not all the time, but you do see them. Sorry, guys, my throat's a little bit sore and storming like hell out right now, and I just kind of feel lousy, but I do want to talk more about this movie. And just, the killer would appear in scenes that you did not expect him to. It's just, you would get the suspense happening later on, and I'll talk about the atmosphere in a minute. And then when you think you caught a breath, there's the killer right there, out for vengeance, which I think was really cool the way it was orchestrated. And with that, let's go into the atmosphere of the movie. Just nice little segue. I think it was, once again, not the greatest. I mean, particularly when you compare it to something like Suspiria or Inferno, and even Black Belly of the Tarantula to some degree. It was well done. It was very suspenseful. It definitely kept me on my seat going, wait, what? Is that about to happen? Don't go under the stairs. Don't go on. No, you went under the stairs. Oh, no, never mind. We're safe. I mean, it kept you guessing, which is essential point for any Giallo film, is it kept you on your toes, but it wasn't as gripping. I talk a lot about immersion in my gameplay reviews, and I talk about a lot of immersion in my movie reviews. A movie can suck you, a good movie with immersion can suck you in like $1,000 hooker. And this movie kind of, I call it suffering from Oblivion syndrome, for a lack of better wording. In the video game Oblivion, there were times when I felt myself getting drawn in, and then something goofy or stupid would happen that would just pull me back out. And that's kind of what this movie did, was I could be feeling very suspenseful, like, what's happening? And then there would be some sort of scene break or a stupid line that would just break the mood like that. And then other times it would be like you would be feeling comfortable, you would be feeling, safe, and then the killer would pop out, and then boom, instant jump scare, which would pull you back into that feeling of unsettledness. Unsettling? An unsettling atmosphere. God, I am tired today. Holy hell. Sorry, y'all. But like I said, it wasn't bad, but if you're new to the Giallo film, this would be the first one to watch it because of these little things. And of course, like previous movies such as Blood and Black Lace and Suspiria, there were tons of little mini plots that confuse you to make you think, is this why the killer's out there? Is this why the killer's doing this? But unlike Black Belly of the Tarantula, these were more distracting, in my opinion, than some of the previous ones. And once again, I maybe that's what Mario Bava's intent was, to throw a million different mini motives and plots at you to make you think that that's why the killer is out there hunting these people. And then it's explained at the tail end of it, which to me was very, not a letdown per se, but I think it could have been beefed up a little bit. Once again, in my opinion. You had a mini arc saying that it was drug-related, that it was money-related, that it was just out of sheer vengeance. You had all these little things, but rather than it going from one mini arc to one mini plot to one mini motive, it was three at the same time, and you're left scratching your head thinking, this could have been done a little bit different. But once again, that didn't detract from the fact it was a good movie. But that was that case. And of course, let's talk a little bit, as I've said in past ones, about this is what, in my opinion, makes the Giallo films stand out from other horror movies, not just of its time, but of modern horror movies. And that is the camera, lighting, and shadow. And this movie had it so excellently done to the point that it was almost on par with an Argento film. I mean, for those that have seen the movie Nosferatu, there's that titular scene with Count Orlok walking up the stairs, and you see his shadow and the dark lighting of him creeping up the stairs like that. This movie was almost on par with something like that. It's just the camera angles from... There's a scene with a person walking across a high balcony at the top of an apartment complex, and it's pouring down rain, but you see little snatches of blue light here and there, and just the shadow of the character walking and the angle of the camera panned up at that. It's not just a still frame shot. It's literally just... It enhances the overall vibe, and you almost get that sense of dread and that sense of fear coming from that person just because the way it's portrayed, like you're seeing it through their eyes. There's another creepy scene, in my opinion, that also goes into the lighting and camera, that it's just an empty room, and it's bathed in this dark red light, and the camera is slowly zooming through the room, and nobody's in there, and the music's kind of in the background very subtly, and that just, it had nothing to do with the central plot, and it had nothing to do with any of the characters, but it still had that sense of unease, and I thought that was really cool. And it wasn't just the dark light or anything like that. There was also bright lights in there too that enhanced the shadows of the characters, or there was a close-up of a character's face, and once again, maybe it's just me because I found it so fascinating, was that half the face was bathed in light and the other half was completely just enshadowed, and you knew that this person was just a scumbag, and I thought that was very excellently done. Or there's another scene, and just people, with the camera is literally on the ground, and you see a person's feet walk by, and then as they're walking, the camera's following them on the ground, and I just found that very well done and very well orchestrated, in my opinion, of course. But I thought that was well done. I thought those things, watching these other Giallo films, seeing the camera angle, seeing the lighting, I think those are really what made them, in my opinion. But with that being said, let's talk about the plot. It starts out, of course, with somebody dying, as we've seen so many other horror movies, and of course Giallo films, but the way this one was done was you see the killer in action, and that just pulls you in right from the start. And you find out that this person works for an Italian modeling agency. I guess it's modeling. You don't see... pardon me. You see parts where people modeling different kind of clothes, and then this person dies. And right then they're thinking, why did this person die? Why are they being outed by the killer? And then that's when you introduce all the million other little mini plots. You see she had a diary that people were trying to read. The diary gets burned later on. You have another death, and you think this one might be related to extortion or exploitation of somebody else. And you're wondering, why is this person killing all these people off? Because there's really no tie-ins to that. They're all separate deaths, and you don't think how one links to the other. And the plot itself, while very static, because at the very end of it you learn that these two characters had an affair with each other and they want to love each other, and the woman, and Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's like I said, it's been about a week since we've watched this, they had this affair, and she possibly murdered her husband, and Diary Girl had found out about this and wrote it in her diary for what reasons rather than talk to the cops, because, that makes perfect sense. So they killed her off to be together, and these other people were just, I guess you can call them just collateral damage. So both the man and the woman, names aren't ringing any bells right now, but once again, that ties into the fact that I found that the characters were just, bleh at best. Did these 10 little Indians style, much like an Agatha Christie movie or book, just to be together. But here's the thing. Plot twist at the end, after all this is revealed, and this big plot, they realize that for whatever reason, known only to themselves, that they want to kill each other? Because after killing all these people to be together, to be in love with each other, they still can't be together. I found that a little bit just weird. Like, you know, you do all this because you love each other and you want to continue this affair without people knowing or going to the cops or anything like that. And why do you want to kill? Why do you feel the need to kill each other? It's maybe they're still, you know, they're afraid they're going to rat each other out. I don't know. But that's pretty much the plot in a nutshell, guys, honestly. But overall, it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a great movie, and I will give it another shot sometime down the road, because all Giallo films, in my opinion, ought to be given a shot. All older ones. Still on the fence about that other remake of Suspiria, but I've been wrong before. But anyways, with that being said, guys, we've got one more movie to watch. I'm actually planning on watching that with Josh, I think sometime today. I'm waiting to hear back from him. If not, then I'll watch it solo. And the final review will go up tomorrow. But I hope you guys have had fun watching these reviews and learning a little bit more about the genre of film. And maybe that will pique your interest. And even if you're not a horror fan, it reaches out to those who like suspense, that those like slashers or just even mysteries. And if you're not a fan of slashers or violence or anything like that, because like I said, there is stabbiness in here, this is probably a good movie to watch, because it's not so much a slasher film as much as a murder mystery. So, of the Raymond Chandler or Agatha Christie sort, like I keep saying. But anyways, let me know what y'all think, and if you have some Giallo films that you want me to watch and review later on, let me know in the comments below. But other than that, y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the flip side, alright? Peace.